It does seem to me a bit of a test. As you know, you and I have followed Amazon for decades now, and their list of tests is far longer than the list of things that continue to remain behind. So it wouldn't surprise me if this is definitely. I mean, it's so early stage. Um, the only way that we're ever going to know if it's not a test or more than a test is if kind of purchasing in this agentic way on a third party is something even shoppers are willing to embrace.
Welcome to the Retailgenic podcast, where we explore the intersection of retail, e-commerce, and AI agents, which we call Retailgenic. Our mission is simple. We are shining a bright light on the new agentic AI shopping megatrend, which will disrupt the trillion-dollar digital retail market. The stakes are high. Google, OpenAI, Microsoft, Perplexity, Amazon, Apple, Meta, and Anthropic are all fighting to be the consumer AI shopping agent winner. There are going to be some tough decisions for online brands and retailers to make. What happens to checkouts? How should payments work? Should you continue to invest in retail media networks? What does the world look like when over half of your traffic is not from humans, but from AI agents? These existential questions are the tip of the iceberg. On this podcast, we're talking to industry experts, analysts, and influencers to get answers to these questions, identify trends, and best practices. This is Retailgenic, your podcast partner in navigating our AI shopping agent future. And now here's your host, Scot Wingo.
Welcome to the Retailgenic podcast. In today's episode, I am excited to welcome Sucharita Kodali. She is the Vice President and Principal Analyst for Retail at Forrester Research. Sucharita is a household name in retail. If you've been to an NRF conference or Shop Talk event, you've seen Sucharita speak at least 2 times, and I think I'm well into double digits. She's always engaging, has a very thoughtful point of view, and she can back that up with data, which I always love. And not unlike my good friend Jason Goldberg, she is not afraid to have contrarian viewpoints, which I always appreciate. Always good to see both sides of the argument. In today's episode, Sucharita comes on and we discuss some of the big trends in retail. We talk about retail media networks and how that is both tied to and magnifying marketplaces. We talk about the disruption that's happening to traditional search, a la Google, around not only what's happening with the LLMs, ChatGPT and whatnot, but also social media. Sucharita has some interesting kind of thoughts on that. And then finally, we go deep into my favorite topic. And the reason you are here at Retailgenic is to talk about agentic shopping. Sucharita shares what her clients are talking about as it relates to both GenAI generally, and then also what they are thinking about, and her own opinion about where these shopping agents are going to go. She has some, let's call it scar tissue from some historical examples that I thought was actually good and kind of as we were talking about it, I remembered those as well, and they're valid points. And I think you're going to enjoy the conversation. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Sucharita. Sucharita, you and I have known each other for a very long time. Thanks for coming on my new podcast, Retailgenic. It's exciting to see you.
Thanks for having me, Scott. Yes, we have known each other for a long time now.
Yeah, and we're actually not too far away from each other. I'm in Raleigh and you're in Charlotte, but it's yeah, people in the Northeast think that's a 20-minute difference, but it's actually a little depending on how fast you drive and where you start from on either side. It can be 3 to 2 hours somewhere in there.
I've never made it into. Maybe you have, Scott, but
Yeah. You have to be like we're on the western edge of the triangle and get to just like touching Charlotte to do it too and go very fast. So I thought we would talk about you've been on social media and Jason, my co-host on the Jason Scott show. The big topic in retail is retail media networks. Maybe let's start there. What's going on with retail media networks? It seems like, do you share the thing that Jason does, where that's kind of what everyone wants to talk about right now?
It is definitely something that a lot of people want to talk about. Certainly, brand manufacturers, and a lot of retailers too. And it always surprises me, Scott, because you came from the marketplace world, and it always shocked me how hard it was to get retailers to talk about marketplaces, but they have no hesitation talking about retail media and jumping on that bandwagon. It's fascinating. I would say that a lot of it originated with Amazon. What is different about ads and retail media versus marketplaces, I think, is that um, there's a lot of the effort that is being led by agencies that are coming to the table promising brand dollars to the retailers. And I think that for retailers, there's a perception that it's easy money, that all they need to do is hang up a shingle with their ad network and call it whatever they call it, and they can get a part of that pie. And I think maybe with marketplaces, and I contrast that because both marketplace and ads are the two cash cows of Amazon's retail business, right? And marketplace is actually much bigger. It is very lucrative, and and it was harder for retailers to kind of embrace that, but they've been very, very fast to embrace ads. And yeah, I think that the agency promise has led to a lot of that. And marketplaces, there's a perception that they're just a lot harder to execute, even though a retail media network is pretty darn hard to execute. And I think a lot of companies underestimate and have underestimated and continue to underestimate the challenges associated with doing a great job.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I think there's a renaissance in marketplaces because the retailer will implement a retail media network and they'll get a fair amount of revenue from the brands, but then they're kind of done, right? And then to get more revenue, they need sellers. So a lot of them will come back, and to get that second leg of growth in the retail media network, suddenly they get a little bit more religion around marketplaces. So companies like
Exactly.
Miracle are really
Mhm.
taking off, and my former channel advisor now Rhythm, they're doing really well on. They're seeing like this new explosion of new marketplaces, but it's largely driven. We were trying to get people to do it for the customer experience, which is like more selection, better prices. uh, Turns out if you appeal to the bottom line, retailers will listen, and do things much faster. So who knew?
Well, maybe it's because again, those same agencies are now, kind of maybe they finally get the marketplace story, and yeah, I think. But no, you're absolutely right. I mean, it is, and that is something I think definitely the Miracle team and even Jason Goldberg has been talking about. I mean, they're very interrelated. Like you cannot have a strong retail media business without sellers, and kind of if you only have like 100 sellers, like that does not a retail media kind of lucrative network make. You need more sellers, and that's where the marketplace becomes kind of essentially a source for advertising dollars. And I guess I'd add, the only other part that is different and probably accelerated the whole retail media adoption, because literally every large retailer, right, I mean, there are hundreds of retail media networks globally, was COVID. And for whatever reason, as companies were very digital during COVID, and they had to sell online. I think that the nimbleness that they embraced, with which they embraced e-commerce and buy online, pick up in store, and every part of the operation also extended to on-site digital ads.
That's a good segue because one of the biggest retail media networks is Instacart, and if you look at their financials, it's interesting. They're kind of like Amazon. Like the core business is really just exists to in Amazon's world to create the marketplace and the ads, which is where the monetization comes from. But the core Instacart, get me my groceries. It's an okay business. It's not a great business. It's got pretty low margins, and but their ad business is like really on fire. And I thought it was interesting that the CEO of Instacart, you and I talked about this a little bit on social media, got recruited away to go to OpenAI. And a lot of people are reading that, and so her name's Fiji Somo, and she's been around for a long time. I don't know if you've ever worked with her, but she was at eBay. I
Mhm.
think I met her at eBay.
Facebook.
She
Her
was,
big thing was
yeah,
Facebook too, right?
Facebook. Yes, she did kind of the retail category there. So yeah, so um, a lot of people, even though Sam Altman said that he's not really looking to do advertising and they would prefer to do subscriptions, a lot of people are inferring from that hire that maybe she's been brought in to help them figure out how to build some ads into ChatGPT. Do you have any tea leaves to read there?
So Fiji is smart and well respected, and I would not be surprised by anything that OpenAI would announce, and I wouldn't be surprised by any direction that Fiji takes the business. It takes her part of the operation either. I mean, she is Silicon Valley, not born. She was born in France, but bred for sure. And kind of she is as Silicon Valley as any of them, and they're very, kind of. I would say that Silicon Valley has a very mercenary attitude. And it's all about ultimately not only long-term sustainability, but kind of this belief in a winner-take-all ecosystem. And so what they say, I think, is completely immaterial. Kind of it's sort of kind of what where the opportunity is really what is more material. And
Yeah, on the same
absolutely
podcast, he did
advertising.
say, that they're seeing a lot of shopping being done on OpenAI, and he felt like a subscription plan plus I think he called it an affiliate fee, but I would call it a take rate. He said that they would be very open to that. So maybe that's the first thing they do. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see, as she gets in there and analyzes things, what she decides to do. And then the other topic you've been writing about in Q1, you wrote a report about how large retailers and brands are using GenAI now. Give us some, is that a topic that's coming up with your clients as they want to kind of learn more about ChatGPT and that kind of thing, and what's working for retailers today?
So, when we look at the largest retailers, it tends to be a pretty consistent set of applications and use cases, I should say, of how Gen AI is used. I mean, first and foremost, a lot of companies integrated it into their kind of into their chat functions. So you had a smarter version of a chat bot. What we've known about chat for years is that it really only gets used in certain circumstances, like for order tracking and kind of post transaction problems. The vision that I think that a lot of the chatbot creators wanted was more of a guided shopping solution, but that hasn't really borne out very much in actual use cases and in the data that I've seen. So that is, it's there, it's useful. It may add to a little bit of improvement in some of those call center metrics, particularly for the avoidable transactions like "Where's my order?" The second big area is in marketing. So the opportunity to have more personalized, could be an email, or use Gen AI to have kind of more extensive paid search language, or whatever your given marketing channel may be. Even creating dynamic videos for different products, or kind of even targeted to different individuals. And also some augmentation of products. So for instance, leveraging Gen AI to take a photograph and map the taxonomy of those items in a way that's more user friendly. So those are essentially the key ways that we've seen large retailers using Gen AI. And there's actually one more. There's IT with Copilot, like kind of we call them Turing bots at Forrester, but essentially Gen AI generated code. Um, Now, all of these are useful, and they generate incremental benefits, but we haven't seen any retailer come out and say that it's yet transformational in any way. I think even Doug McMillan, said on an earnings call about some of their Gen AI code that it's a little, kind of maybe a single digit increase in the number of lines of code that have been written in a period of time. But again, that's useful. It's positive 1% lift is better than a negative 1% decline, but it's not enough to, I think, move the needle on a business yet. So that's essentially what I mean, we have almost 3 years of since ChatGPT was released to the masses. And that's essentially what we have to show for it in retail.
How about so ChatGPT, Perplexity, and now Anthropic have web search. Are retailers starting to see traffic come from those and start to wonder, is that going to replace Google down the road or anything like that? Is that a topic or because another thing you and I were chatting about on social media was their Eddie Q on the Apple side was in this lawsuit that the Apple, I guess it's the yeah, it's the Apple monopoly lawsuit with the DOJ. And, he basically said for the first time ever, Safari traffic mobile is down month on month from search, which was interesting. And that they would be open to, they're actually, he thinks, number one, it's eroding because people are using ChatGPT, Perplexity types of answer engines versus search engines. Are retailers starting to see that in their data or is it too early?
So, what we see are two big competitors to Google search, and it's not just the LLMs. Like the first section of competitors that's actually larger right now are actually the social media companies like TikTok and even Instagram. So, for the longest time, Facebook was terrible at search, but Instagram does seem to have improved your ability to match searches, and it could often be product searches with content that is aligned to what the consumer may be looking for. And TikTok definitely has. So, but we'll leave that aside because I think that's probably the single biggest threat to Google in the near term. And then as a secondary threat is the growth of LLMs. Perplexity from a consumer standpoint is still very small. It's like 4% of people say that they use Perplexity, and it's very much inside baseball for most of us. Like we all know Perplexity. Everybody who's going to be listening to this podcast probably knows Perplexity, but the average person if you were to do a kind of a market research intercept at your local grocery store would not know what Perplexity is. But what we are seeing is that kind of a lowish double digit percent of people are absolutely using ChatGPT and these generative AI, essentially search engines for both general search as well as shopping search. So yeah, I mean it's definitely there. They often deliver good results that it may expose you to things that you hadn't seen before. So absolutely, there's we have to keep our eye on that. That now even within Gen AI, though, Scott, there's another player which is Rufus and Amazon, and that's even kind of higher from a shopping search standpoint than even ChatGPT. Which is the biggest of all of the kind of the Gen AI search tools. So the question is, will the general search tools continue to do a good job, which they probably will with shopping because retailers, I'm sure, will hand over their product, kind of their catalogs, because there will definitely be at least the kind of the smaller ones that work with Shopify that kind of I'm sure likely will. But yeah, I mean, I think that there's also Amazon to reckon with in this space too, because they too are trying to answer very, very highly contextual, relevant searches for shoppers through, kind of both their non-Gen AI search capabilities as well as this emerging Rufus tool as well.
Yeah. Does the Rufus is that from some data you guys get out of surveys, or um, how do you place Rufus? Is that yeah
Ours is consumer shopper data. So it is, kind of from your, kind of in the last few months, what did you use to when you were searching for either general products or general information and then for shopping?
yeah? So that could be the the soundbite out of this is Rufus is kind of a little bit of a sleeper because I tried it and I continue to try it and it's kind of underwhelming. So maybe I'm not, this is the trick with consumer behavior is we're not the average consumer. So um, yeah, so that's an interesting one. That is a good
Well,
segue
it's
into
also not even
yeah,
everywhere, right? Like Rufus is
yeah,
only on the Amazon app, and not even everybody uses the
yeah,
Amazon app. And, kind of a lot of people may not even realize that it's there or it's an option. And, kind of Amazon, just the free Amazon search is actually, kind of again a bigger threat to Google and shopping than probably all of the other players.
yeah. So it's an interesting time for Google. They're government's looking at them as if they're a monopoly, and yet they're face more competition than they ever have before. It's kind of an out of sync kind of. The government's working on something that was like 5 years ago, and it's already eroded in the time it took them to kind of get their act together.
Yeah, so, kind of maybe they just pull a Microsoft and, kind of, pay a fine and move on.
Yeah, a lot of people think they'll just kind of sacrificially put Chrome out into another company or something, spin it off, and that'll be kind of where we go.
Yeah, they just, kind of recognizing that, probably browsers are probably, kind of at the, on the downtrend anyway.
Yeah. So on the topic of agents, as we're recording this on May 16th, there's two live agents out there. And for me, an agent is actually goes and makes the purchase on your behalf. It's not just kind of a surfacing of a better research tool. So we have Perplexity. They have Buy with Pro, where if you're a Pro subscriber, it will actually go, and if it's connected to the checkout, it's not actually going and running through the checkout. It's doing a digital checkout kind of thing. But then Amazon actually does have an agent that will go. So brands can be on Amazon, and they're not first party or third party. It's a new mechanism, and it's called Buy for Me. Sorry. And I actually bought a pair of shoes that way, and it was really interesting to think through. I would have never guessed Amazon would do this because, the first party part of the house really wants these brands on there, and then if they don't take them, then they should go third party. So it's interesting that you know I wonder if they're worried enough about this that they now realize they need to pull in more brands, or else there's going to be some leakage in this potential agentic future. Did that surprise you at all when they did it, or you think it's just a test, or where do you land on that one?
It does seem to me a bit of a test. As you and I have followed Amazon for decades now, and their list of tests is far longer than the list of things that continue to remain behind. So it wouldn't surprise me if this is definitely. It's so early stage. The only way that we're ever going to know if it's not a test or more than a test is if kind of purchasing in this agentic way on a third party is something even shoppers are willing to embrace. And I think that there's a lot that whenever you try to buy for somebody else, and remember, Scott, like there are so many kind of universal shopping carts that have been tried and failed in the past. And those are they all attempted to be agentic solutions. And in fact, the guy who started Nate the app was, kind of, he's probably going to go to jail now because he pretended it was an agentic solution that never was. But so I think that this isn't the first time that kind of there is a company trying to consolidate shopping across multiple e-commerce experiences in one place. The bigger question is, will consumers accept it, and can you build can you adjust to all of the issues that have existed in the past and why it has failed up to now? And a lot of it has been, just being able to ingest shipper information and data on inventory availability, and kind of managing what's available when it gets shipped out. Kind of the whole post transaction piece that, if anybody can do it, I would think that Amazon can, but you're still kind of dealing with a lot of other players that you don't have control over. And as you know, that's one of the main reasons that Amazon has been built to be the behemoth that it is, including in fulfillment and in operations and whatnot, is because they want to have the ability to control the hard parts of the experience that you don't want to, kind of let random third parties own. So I think that it's still early, and there's a lot that they're going to need to figure out, to really get this right. And it also, it's sort of like, what's even available for sale. Like, I mean, I don't know that everybody is gonna want or embrace this. Maybe again, kind of sellers on the Shopify platform. But I can't see Walmart ever opening, kind of itself up to this, or some other large branded players.
Yeah, they actually had as part of their earnings, their CTO chatted with the Wall Street Journal, and he was talking about how they're accepting their agentic future, but yeah, I'm a little skeptical. So we'll see. Yeah,
We'll see.
because yeah, it raises it raises a whole host of issues. So this goes back to retail media networks. If it's not humans and it's bots coming, an advertiser's not going to want to pay for a bot to see an ad because it's going to be basically blind to that. Certainly not influenced by it. And then as you know, retailers have spent, I don't know, hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars on personalization loyalty programs. And if all that moves up a layer, then they're just going to basically be, product catalog, inventory, and fulfillment networks for, a Gen AI in the sky kind of thing. So it's going to be, but at the same time, if it starts to be a meaningful, and ChatGPT is getting meaningful, consumer adoption, not for shopping, but for just general DAU, MAU kind of data. Maybe they'll have to, and maybe there will be a ad platform of some sort that allows them to treat it just like they would Google today or a third party marketplace. So it's going to be interesting to see which model, how retailers react to it, and if they do embrace it, how they deal with these downstream effects that are going to be pretty material.
And it will be different, I think, in different categories. I mean, I really don't see Agentic, kind of enabling somebody to buy a Rolex. But, kind of it probably will let you buy apples. So I think that, there will be sectors like, for instance, packaged goods, probably grocery, commodities, where it could work. And those will probably be the places where it's embraced earliest as well.
On the Rolex, the part that it's really good at is the research phase. So I have the big version of ChatGPT that has the O3, which will go do all this deep research. And I'm a collector of a really esoteric Star Wars comic book art thing, not a Rolex. But like a Rolex, it's relatively scarce. So it's neat is you can, it's very good at scouring the internet for things. And when they pop up, you can have it run a daily queue. And so I could actually see it at least being on the research and find cycle of collectibles. There is a role for it, but I don't think you'll actually use it for the payment part. Yeah, I agree with that for sure.
Well, it's interesting that you raise that, Scott, because kind of in financial services, they do have like limit orders, right? For, kind of, exactly what you want, you trust your seller, and kind of you can set like, this is the price that is the right price for me. And I could definitely see like Black Friday, kind of that could be a totally agentic, kind of the same way we set limit orders for stocks, to set your limit order for, kind of a particular SKU that you are on the hunt for. And it could be, a very expensive, kind of SKU. So that much, I think I think that part is probably very likely within an agentic framework. Um, where I think that it kind of falls down are, kind of to the research. Well, it's interesting. I mean, I think that kind of if you want to touch and feel something and make sure that that's actually the right item, I think that kind of the full omni-channel experience is still going to be crucial. But if you're far down the funnel and you know exactly what you want and you're just waiting for the seller to sell it to you at a certain price, I think that is that could be a game changer.
This holiday, I think the Switch 2, I don't know if I recall, you have kids kind of the general age of mine, but that's like the hot thing that everyone wants right now is there's a new Nintendo Switch platform and it's already out of stock everywhere. So having an agent where I said, look, I'll go up to like $3.99 for this puppy. If you see it anywhere, buy it immediately. That would be a very handy thing. There's some websites that kind of like hack that, but they don't like really execute really well.
It's almost like the ticket broker, kind of model. Like, why hasn't it been made available to the masses? And I do think that, kind of it's almost the end of ticket brokers once you get into consumer driven agentic, kind of bots like this.
Everyone's a ticket broker. Yeah. Yeah. The next Taylor Swift tour is going to be crazy. Everyone will have their bots. They're going to have to get ready for that.
Well, then you may end up with like what happened to the Beyonce concert now, where like, kind of they just drove the prices. Well, Ticketmaster was kind of brilliant in that, kind of they just well, they won't admit it, but, kind of essentially kind of because they had the frenzy in the beginning and the frenzy just kept driving the prices up. And but then nobody wanted the tickets after. So all these people, all these bots, kind of got all this merchandise that then they had to unload, which really sucks for them because they live and die off of like the big marquee events like a Beyonce concert.
Yeah, when you have bots that are doing dynamic pricing, you got to be there's a downside to that decision too.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, I mean, kind of if you were lucky enough to, well, you probably didn't think that you were lucky when the tickets were released, but kind of Beyonce ticket goers or concert goers are now quite lucky because evidently you can score all sorts of good deals, or you could have in the last few weeks. Anyway.
So if I were to summarize, you're a little skeptical on agentic. You kind of like want to see, the open question is, are consumers going to even engage with this thing? Any other kind of things on your mind that you're thinking about for the next trends over the next couple of years that you're keeping an eye on?
Certainly TikTok shopping, and more than TikTok, because who knows what's going to happen with TikTok. But certainly this idea of influencer-led short-form videos and matching that with search, and that's been an interesting kind of change that I didn't expect. And if I had to say what was probably the single biggest reason that other social media networks never made social shopping work, and I put everybody from Pinterest to Facebook on that list, is that they didn't focus on search. And kind of, or if they did have search, they kind of had a very limited set of items that were available for sale. Like I always describe, kind of, you got to think of it as a Venn diagram. Like, there's one circle that has all of the items that shoppers want. And there's another circle that has all of the items that are available for sale. And the overlap there isn't always 100%. In fact, it's probably like maybe 15 or 20%. And kind of what are you trying to do is kind of at the more important part is matching all of the people that have things they want to buy. And kind of that may not always be reflected in products that kind of like a marketplace may have to offer. But this is where if you can get influencers to just create content across a variety of different products that through your data you've shared, this is what people are looking for, and there's now an affiliate program, and if somebody's looking for a duffel bag, like go create something on kind of some cool duffel bags. That is essentially what TikTok has done, and kind of it's been game changing. Like the others just didn't do that. The closest was probably YouTube. um, but but it's been interesting to see how that's evolved and how it will continue to evolve.
Yeah, I think Mr. Beast was early in realizing he could build a brand. And then also, you always have the Kardashians, but it's not like really as tied together as TikTok is being able to kind of create this flywheel effect of search, influencer, kind of a marketplace, if you will, all really going very quickly. So yeah, it's been interesting. Yeah. I have an 18-year-old daughter, and I can vouch that she discovers lots of products on TikTok. There's always new beauty products coming from that.
Yeah, mine. I have two teenage daughters. Yeah, same thing.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, I appreciate you. You took time out of your Friday, so I really appreciate that. Any closing thoughts for listeners and viewers?
Yeah, no, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, Scott. And I'm incredibly eager to see how Agentic becomes a thing in the months and years to come, and what will truly be Agentic versus the expression that I first heard from you, which cracked me up, which was faugentic, which every time, kind of, there's some people who get it and think, oh, that's really hilarious. And then there are other people who like don't get it at all, which I'm like, how do you not get this? This is hilarious. But anyway.
Thanks. Yeah. So if you have any hot reports, we'd love to hear them. Maybe give us a little early drop or something. So you're always welcome to come back on the pod and talk about these trends. And thanks for your time.
Amazing. Thank you, Scott.
Follow, rate, and share to stay up to date with Retailgenic, your guide to the future of AI shopping agents.